video of this series and the last one. Last time on video number 4, we basically paused at slide number 31. This is slide number 32, which is basically a repetition of the previous slide, of slide number 31, which is basically the alternative sources of energy that the human body uses to produce ATP. So as I mentioned, in the center we have carbohydrates. If we have a diet that is very rich in complex carbohydrates, our body, especially in the digestive system, will break down those complex carbohydrates in simple carbohydrates such as glucose. And that's how glucose, fructose, and galactose, other simple carbohydrates, are basically absorbed from the intestine into the blood circulation. And I showed you in the center how basically glucose will be processed by cells in our body. On the left side, we have fats. Fats is a great source of energy, and I forgot to mention in the previous slide that the number of ATP that is produced, or the yield of ATP that is produced per organic molecule, will be directly related to how big that organic molecule is. In the case of fats or fatty acids contains a lot of carbon and hydrogen. Basically, fatty acids are much larger molecules than glucose. Glucose only has 6 carbons. So some fatty acids have 15, 20, probably more carbons and hydrogen. So in principle, fats produce a higher number of ATP than what a single glucose molecules can produce. I mean, fatty acids can produce 3 or more times the number of ATP compared to what a glucose molecules can produce. Proteins, however, are very small molecules. Some amino acids, which are the building blocks of proteins, contain just few carbons and hydrogen. So the number of ATPs produced in per amino acid is not significantly different from the number of ATPs that are produced from a glucose or simple sugar molecule. The body always use carbohydrates as the primary source of energy. When our body runs out of carbohydrates, then it moves into fat. Fat becomes the second source of energy. Then if we run out of fat, now we're talking about fasting, now the body will enter and start breaking down proteins, and that's something that it's not really a good practice. What I mean by practice is that some people get into a diet and focus mostly on proteins. We have to be careful with that because especially your brain only can use carbohydrates as the only source of energy. Okay. Anyway, let's just move to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about human activities, and this is something that you guys will understand better when we talk chapter 8, which is about photosynthesis. So at this point, I'm going to skip this, and I will return to this after we complete chapter 8, which is photosynthesis. I'd like to talk a little bit about biofuel, but again, we can do that after we complete chapter 8. Okay, so this is the end of this presentation. Thank you.